everyone, and welcome to the DoubleBlind Magic Hour, where we cover what's going on in the world of psychedelics, from the latest news on research, politics, and beyond. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Shelby Hartman, co-founder of DoubleBlind, a print magazine covering psychedelics, and today we're joined by Mikaela de la Myco, a mother, an educator, a folk herbalist, a community organizer, an entheogen facilitator, and an amazing human. Hello, thank you for being here.
I'm honored to be in kinship with you, and I'm really happy to say that we've been in, these shared and close spaces before. So I'm really honored to be asked to be here and speak and share what I know.
So Mikaela, I know you as someone who walks many worlds and does many things. You speak at conferences, you support people with a focus on folks with wombs, with menstruation, motherhood, intimacy, and much more. And one of the reasons that I'm struck by what you do is that you're in this particular part of the plant medicine world, a world centered around parenthood, motherhood, herbalism, womb sovereignty that frankly, I don't think gets enough visibility. Tell us a little bit about just how you got to be you.
I was certainly somebody who struggled, and considering, the content of this episode and the interest in which we find ourselves in, would love to talk about my relationship with my womb. And my relationship with my womb was fraught with the discontent. It was very... I was dysregulated in my body from just quite a young age. And I don't think that's because I'm a bad person or because I don't deserve to have a good relationship with my womb. But I feel that the environment that I was growing up in was not womb literate. And a lot of people are growing up in the world and we're not very womb literate. And so a lot of young people grow up with very understandable manifestations of dis-ease of the womb and are not met with the literacy necessary in order to see their way through them. And so with what was presenting to me, irregular periods, when I began bleeding, painful menstruation, heavy menstruation and the like, and just kind of getting regular with it, I started bleeding at age 12 and I was put on hormonal birth control very shortly after I began bleeding. And that is a shared experience. There is this answer to all diseases of the womb in pharmaceutical birth control and hormone therapy, essentially. So I was brought into that world very early. I was put on a hormonal birth control called Yaz. It's not even on the market anymore because it was so sketch. And I was on that for a couple years as a young person. And it didn't do much to help me. And I was navigating the hormonal fluctuations as a regular preteen into my teenage years, coupled with this hormone that was very alien to my body. And so I manifested those symptoms and side effects in a myriad of ways, but couldn't really quite put my finger on the fact that it had something to do with this pharmaceutical medication and who I was becoming as a person in my womb and what I really needed, which was guidance and support and literacy and care. And so I went on so many different birth control options, from the pill to the mini pill to the NuvaRing to the patch to the Nexplanon, which was placed in under the skin of my arm. I never had my experience with the IUD, but I know many people have had the IUD and the Depo-Provera. So I never had those two, but I tried almost all of the others. And I still couldn't find harmony in my bleeding cycles and in my emotional state. So I'm grateful to be speaking hopefully to an audience of people that have had a similar experience, that have had experiences with hormonal birth control, and maybe have asked the question, is this for the rest of my life? And is this something I'm going to need to do forever? And what are and questioning maybe what the options are for regulating the menstrual body, regulating emotional swings that come with those changes hormonally. And also, what is it that we do about actually doing contraceptive work and ensuring that we don't get pregnant and protecting ourselves from STDs and STIs? And like, how do we insource and decentralize and bring it back to folk care and networks of women healers and midwives and herbalists and the like? So, if this sounds like you, if this sounds like a person who's curious, I hope you continue listening because we're about to get into it.
We're about to get into it. And I just want to stop for a moment and ask what some listeners now at this point might be thinking, which is, what does this have to do with psychedelics?
What does it have to do with it at all?
and why do people who do not have wombs or do not menstruate, why should they keep listening?
Ashay, so I love to answer the question, why do people without a womb care, and why they should care about people with wombs? People with wombs account for 50% of the population. You might not have one yourself.
In case you didn't know.
But you might care about someone with one at some point in your life. You might have come from one. I would say actually 100% of people have come from one. So the quality of the womb that you were born in is you, and is the manifestation of what you are and were born into and are becoming. So caring for the wombs of the world is a collective issue, not a woman's issue. And the environment in which we create for people with wombs is a direct, it translates directly into what the world looks like as far as the human population for generations to come. The quality of the wombs birthing in this day will determine the quality of the planet and the people on it. So we have a responsibility to care for the wombs of this earth, because they are essentially our access to the life beyond life. They are the mechanism for how life will generate itself here. So if we care about human life on earth, and we care about the well-being of all children, then we got to pour into these wombs, honey. So that's hopefully just a little bit of a framing for why you should care about a womb. And you might have a partner with a womb, and you might have a best friend with one. So let's insource some of these skills so that we can each one teach one and help each other. And what it all has to do with entheogens. What does it all have to do with psychedelics? I think the success of the psychedelic experience has a lot to do with the feelings and the sensations experienced within a person's body when they journey. And if we're dealing with chronic pain, we're dealing with the loss of minerals and vitamins and nutrients and macronutrients because our menstruation is extremely heavy, that makes a direct impact on our ability to journey like peacefully and in a kind and loving and compassionate way. What it also means in the space of psychedelics is that a lot of people carrying medicine are cyclical bodies. Like, we're women healers, we are women facilitators. So our relationship with our womb also impacts the way that we can serve other people. And if we are considering the sovereignty of the mind, the unlocking of social conditioning, patterns of behavior, we are unlocking our relationship with the plant world and nature itself. Can we please just understand that the earth is a cyclical body, that it has seasonal fluctuation and change, the same way that the womb does. So if we can't tune in to that body's rest, and that they bloom, and that they flourish, and then they die, and that they rest and then do it all over again, how are we going to even grapple with our relationship with the planet as a whole? So this is the microcosm to the macrocosm. If we can understand and wrap our head around this, we can understand how to be better humans on the planet. And I think lastly, if we are really grappling with social conditioning, stigma, the construction of the view of a colonized world to the way that our minds should function, I'd like to invite us to imagine what stigma, what conditioning is placed on the body, and what's placed on female reproductive systems and what we believe about that. There is an incredible impact on the earth right now with the way that we are currently managing the illness of menstruation, from single-use plastic tampons to there are hormones in our water because of how much women are peeing birth control into the water supply. And that is directly impacting and affecting all human beings and all life on this earth. So it does bear a little bit of weight in the psychedelic space. And maybe this is something you become increasingly interested in over time, or maybe this is something that you have considered for a while now. But I'm just here to present like just my understanding of ways to get free and tend to and be a cyclical body by nature, and how that can be supported by the entheogenic experience, and how that itself can support the entheogenic experience of not just our individual lives, but the lives of all beings on the planet.
We went there already.
Sorry.
And there's so much more to say. But first, we're going to take a quick break. This episode of the DoubleBlind Magic Hour is sponsored by fungi. Fungi chocolates and fruit chews are an alcohol and psychedelic alternative activated with kanna. They're perfect for the newly sober or for people that are interested in trying a psychedelic adjacent plant. At DoubleBlind, we're very passionate about the fact that there's a lot of romanticization of these bigger psychedelics, these scheduled substances, whether it's MDMA, psilocybin, LSD, but there's actually a whole apothecary of legal plants and fungi that come from the earth that are beautiful for connecting with yourself, connecting with other people. I've tried fungi's chocolates. I did them the other day in the backyard with my friend. It was just the kind of gentle stimulant and euphoria that I was looking for. In addition to the kanna, the fungi chocolates have cordyceps, aphrodisiacs such as damiana, and a gentle stimulant to activate the experience, which is called guarana. The fungi fruit chews are dosed at half of a chocolate serving, giving you more flexibility in how you build your dosage. So strength-wise, 2 of their fruit chews equals 1 chocolate triangle. I had 1 chocolate triangle the other day. With kanna, they're able to provide a sort of similar instant magical effect to psychedelics. You can kind of think of it like a microdose of MDMA. Kanna also pairs well with other substances such as mushrooms, cannabis, caffeine. If you want to check out fungi's kanna chocolates, then you can get 25% off of your first order. Just use the code DoubleBlindPod at fungi.com. That's FUNGUY, I can spell.com. Thanks for listening. So for those of you who don't know, DoubleBlind began as a print magazine, and it's still at the heart of what we do. I spent my whole career as a journalist before starting DoubleBlind, reporting on psychedelics, cannabis, and drug policy more broadly for Rolling Stone, Vice, LA Weekly, Quartz. I did just about everything in journalism. I worked at CBS News covering breaking news, a major newspaper, small media startups, and if you haven't heard, journalism is in crisis. But we started DoubleBlind anyway because we believe in the value of good journalism to educate and hold stakeholders accountable. We saw what happened in cannabis. Pioneers who put their lives on the line to get patients access to the medicine they needed, getting left behind because they didn't have the capital to compete in the newly regulated market. We've seen what's happened in mental health care and healthcare more broadly, whereby millions of people are suffering, don't trust their doctors, can't afford proper care, and just don't know what to do to get well. In our print magazine, we feature essays, investigations, photojournalism, and much more by world-class journalists who are going everywhere from the ayahuasca tourism industry in Peru to laboratories at leading universities. We're supporting people like you on their journey with psychedelics, and we're covering this movement as it unfolds. This is all made possible by our members who, in exchange for their support, get direct access to psychedelic experts to help them on their journeys of healing and growth, workshops, and a subscription to our beautiful print magazine. Subscribe today at doubleblindmag.com/membership. Okay, so I want to zoom out a little bit before we come back to psychedelics, Because we know in the psychedelic field that there's a lot of demonization of the Western medical paradigm. I mean, there's a whole contingent of people that are basically demonizing SSRIs and saying, psychedelics are the solution to our mental health epidemic. Of course, there's a contingent of people that are also trying to put psychedelics through the pharmaceutical process. That's a whole other conversation. But if you talk to a lot of people that are really passionate about psychedelics and doing them with some regularity, there's sort of a skepticism and demonization of the Western medical paradigm. Now, we also see parallels between that and sort of what is happening within women's healthcare, whereby, you might go to the doctor, to your primary care doctor if you're sick. They're going to say, take antibiotics. They're not going to give you all of the information on what the potential side effects of that are. If you're someone with a womb growing up in this culture, it's like you turn 11, you turn 12, you go to the OBGYN, you get your PAP, you want to have sex, you get put on birth control. Like, there isn't a conversation about your body, your choice. Let's really come to understand what the ecosystem of our bodies contains. So talk to us a little bit about this process of rejecting this paradigm we're living in, whereby you go to the doctor, they tell you you have a problem, and instead trying to return to an intuitive sense of what your body needs, a return to other forms of wisdom, other forms of knowledge around taking our health into our own hands. What does that process look like?
Gaskamati, thank you. That was a nice little uplink for sure. And this is a short conversation. So if people are really interested in kind of like a deep dive of, for me, understanding like the changing of hands of power and how wombs even became a subject of Western medicine and why the influence that it has is framed in this way, why obstetrics and gynecology has this desensitivity towards like the needs of the feminine body or just wombs in general. I really encourage people to check out the Wombs of the Empire 3-part series that I did. They're 2-hour lectures each. And the second lecture is all about like kind of the medicalization of the womb and like what we dealt with in, the last 2 centuries around how wombs got cared for in this context and who was kind of at the helm of that, and which leads, to the outcomes that we experience in the modern day space, right? If the roots are rotten, and so then will be the fruits, right? So that's what we're living in, and people deserve to know that history. So if anyone's interested in that, I hope that we can link to it because this is a very short conversation for a very broad and large and deep topic.
We'll put it in the show notes for sure.
What is the process of getting free? What is the process of questioning? What is the process of understanding how to advocate for oneself in these settings? Because truly, in these days, I take a plants, pills, and practices approach to pretty much all things because I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's something that I can access in the medical setting that I can't get always in folk. And actually, most of the time, that's the equipment, that's the testing, that's the diagnostics, right? Even traditional midwives have instruments, and we can leverage those things from that space. We can get a clear diagnosis and then go to our midwife or go to our folk herbalist and get multiple eyes on this. I take a very multidimensional approach when dealing with the needs of a womb, because if you can get a CAT scan or if you can get an ultrasound at a hospital, go get that shit and then take those reports back home and learn and understand how to heal yourself, right? So I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and demonize an entire system that in some ways can still stand to benefit us. And another thing that I will say is that when it comes to natural birth control and doing abortion work out of clinic, okay, let's get our misoprostol and mifepristone if that is what is needed, right? We're so grateful at the work of so many people to discover an off-label use of an ulcer medication for out-of-clinic abortion. That is genius. And let's not forget that. So can plants support that? Can practices support that? Can the earth support that? Yes. And let's use all of our tools, right? the story of my getting free from the system and questioning it and understanding it actually came in an ayahuasca experience, which I think has everything to do with this conversation, because what does psychedelics have to do with it? A lot of people are guided to change the way that they live their entire life because of these medicine experiences. Some people are given an assignment. Some people are given like very clear instructions around this is how you're living. Maybe let's pivot, right? So I was on my next on when I drank ayahuasca for the first time. I was also a very active sex worker when I drank ayahuasca for the first time. And I was in a women's circle when I drank ayahuasca for the first time. And the clear instruction that I received was A, leave sex work, and B, get off of hormonal birth control forever. Those were big instructions because they were my identity for a time, my livelihood for a time, and also the only way I knew how to relate to my body, even though I was unhappy and depressed and sad, which is what led me to ayahuasca in the first place. But she made a very clear instruction for that. And between sessions, there was a circle that these women held and talked about conscious contraception and natural birth control. And that was the first time I'd ever heard, whoa, if I have sex at some point in my cycle at any time, like I'm not just doomed to become pregnant. I mean, I was that girl.
It is so crazy.
Isn't
People
that amazing?
don't know that.
Like that there is a fertile window and that when you're outside of that, it's very unlikely that you would become pregnant. And once you ovulated, like you're okay.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the fact that people don't even know that there are phases of a menstrual cycle and that your energy and mood changes and your needs change depending on the phase you're in. It's just like, how is this not taught in schools? I'm so perplexed.
it's just not that interesting to like Western medicine to have a literate like user base, right? You can make a dependent population if they're ill-educated. And there isn't a lot of money and there isn't a lot of funding. And sex education has a long way to go. It's behind so many other nations of the world, which is why I really believe that education is so important. And that's a primary mode of how I help others is just liberate through educate. Okay. So I was given that instruction. Let's take it out. Cool. Went to the OBGYN at my school. All right, get this thing out of me. And she's like, oh, what are you going to go on next? That's the model that we're working out is like, there's no other way but this. And so I said, I want to learn the cycles of my body and follow the moon and like follow nature and learn myself, girl. I was like, I want to learn myself. And she's like, you're fucking weird. Bye. And it's so funny because like, when given that option, like I said, hey, I want to learn my own body to a doctor. She had no resources for me. Isn't that insane? Like, this is a physician. You don't have a handout. You don't have anything that can lead me on my journey. There is nothing with like a little, here's the 4 phases and like giving me some basic nothing. She sent me out the room. They don't get paid for that. They get paid to push pills. They don't get paid to educate in this way. And so I was really lost. Like, I really try to give this education richly so that when people decide to leave, they have something to fall back on. I just jumped off the side of a cliff and I was like, I'm about to get pregnant if I look at someone. I have no idea what I'm doing. It was horrifying. I was so scared. I was like 22 and sexually active. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do about this. So thank goodness for the internet. Found the internet and I found a really good teacher and I've been in her tutelage for almost 10 years now. And she put me on game and I'm really grateful that I had a mentor and I'm very privileged to have a mentor and I'm very privileged that women and elder women have poured into me their knowledge base and that I'm in a community of folks that do care about this kind of literacy and sovereignty. And it's off the beaten path, but it is accessible to people.
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing up the community component because obviously there's a lot of people that are becoming really interested in psychedelics because they're suffering, who are living all around the world. And some of these people really have no idea where to access a psychedelic, who to do a psychedelic with. They're trying to find a facilitator. They're trying to find a therapist. They meet some random person. And we don't often talk about how important it is to have models of communal support and communal care when embarking on this kind of journey, whether it is that you want to sort of take your womb care back into your own hands or whether you want to embark on a journey with plant medicines. So, can you talk to us a little bit about like the container that is the ritual, the network that you've built? I mean, you're not doing this alone. You're not working alone. You're not supporting people alone.
And I'm grateful for it. It's too much work for one person. And we need multiple eyes on it. You know what I mean? We deserve to refer out. People deserve to be referred out, right? When something's outside of our scope of practice. And I think that builds in a good deal of ethics as well. So to your question around community and to your question around like these are communal processes of healing, whether it is HSV2 or it's an abortion or it's a mental health break, right? Systems of community support can change the shape of a process. A birth process can be changed dramatically by the level of support of the people that are present, both during and after the birth, right? And it's really hard to find those people and those models. And so I would say an interesting flag to look at is if you're contacting somebody that is not willing to refer out or not like, or trying to insource everything that you do. And that's the prep and that's the integration and that's the journey itself. And a person that isn't forthcoming with other opportunities for connection, encouraging you to share your story, to ask for help from others, I would say maybe check out somebody else because I'm really seeing how transparency and visibility increases safety. And all kinds of processes can be supported by community because there are different levels of expertise, right? If you're going into hoping to have a mushroom experience, for example, and this person's expertise is in a certain area, but you're feeling that there's something coming up around your womb or around your physical body, like you need a massage as part of your like work with the mushroom because you're so tense and you're so tight and your breath is so shallow, right? That person who's holding space for you, I hope would feel welcome to you seeking out care, for you communicating that you are in this process of healing with those other care providers. We work within networks of care providers, and we like to trade notes with each other because then that helps us as a community support that person. So here is an example. I had an out of clinic abortion in 2022. And I knew that I was embarking on this thing where I wouldn't just call Planned Parenthood, walk in, a doctor would do something to me, and then I would leave. I was embarking on something different. I was going to need people at my house to know. People at my home needed to know what I was going through. I needed to call my midwife or someone I knew had access to medical equipment and say, hey, I'm going to go through this process. Do you think you can run some blood tests on me to see if I'm actually doing this correctly and if my hormones are changing with the plants that I'm taking? I needed to call an herbalist and say, hey, I'm interested in working with these plants. Is this combination safe? What do you think about that? Like that, I had 12 people like pouring into me at different times. I had a naturopathic doctor based out of LA. If anyone wants her contact, she was able to prescribe me misoprostol. During my time, I was taking misoprostol. I called her and I was like, hey, I need more. Cool. It's at the pharmacy, $11 a pill. It was incredible to have a medical doctor like on team for this process. And I'm a very earthy person. And I'm willing to pull out tools from anyone's toolkit to support me in these actions. And then the follow-up was like, I needed to talk to someone who maybe had experience knowing my emotional body. I told certain people, I didn't tell certain people, but everyone knew about each other. It's like the polyamory of mental health crisis and physical crisis and like emergent experiences. And so I really would like to implore people listening to consider like a lateral community-based model for a lot of the things that we go through, whether that's divorce, whether that's birth, whether that's a breakup, whether that's us choosing to get off of hormonal birth control or tackling things like fibroids. Like, tell somebody, tell fucking me, okay? I'm very accessible. Email me, whatever it is, DM me. Like, get eyes on it because you deserve care. And all that's doing, you're not bothering anybody. You're not doing too much or you're throwing your shit on people. Like, we deserve each other. And it only builds literacy among us all. If someone can say, hey, my girlfriend went through an abortion, like, you know, and I learned a little bit about what she needed. Now you have skills as a person in your community. So I hope that these dealings of the womb and being open and more open about them and destigmatizing things like having herpes or having a miscarriage can actually build the collective literacy the same way that it happens in the psychedelic community. So there are a lot of parallels, and I like to draw those parallels because psychedelics is inherently a folk practice being now pushed through a medical model, and caring for the womb is a folk practice that was pushed through the medical model that we're all trying to find our way out of. So thank you for allowing me to share
Yeah, no,
community-based
of
models.
course. No, absolutely. I mean, I think it's so important because um, at the risk of stating the obvious, so much of what we're seeing now around the hype with psychedelics is person has problem, person takes psychedelics, person no longer has problem. But what we actually see most of the time, again and again, in communities that are working with people who are taking plant medicines is it's not just take the thing, you're better. And that oftentimes the container, the community, the support, what you do before and after, who's willing to bring soup over to your house, who's willing to sit next to you on the couch in silence. These are the things that can make all the difference. And someone can take 2 weeks off work and they can save up $3,000 and they can fly to the Amazon and they can do ayahuasca. But if they come home and they're exactly where they were before and no one understands what they went through, it's going to be really hard to see meaningful change.
Absolutely. When I consult with people, and I mostly consult with cycling people, I consult with mothers in particular, and that's even a more niched out population because the demands of motherhood require so much tending and like so much attention. And our mental health comes last a lot of the time, and our physical health comes last most of the time. And the needs of mothers is like, we devote so much to our domesticity. And then if we are even outside of that, we're maybe, caretaking our businesses and our work. We have very little time for friends. We have very little time to just go out and mingle and like do shit with people. So we pull from very small pools of people to be able to resource ourselves for this kind of integration care. So when I talk to mothers and they're like, I want to start microdosing, I'm breastfeeding, and I just don't know where to start. I'm just like, who's in your corner right now? Who can you call? Who do you see every day? What does your community look like? Does your partner know you're doing this? What do they feel about it? Because that will be a direct reflection of the benefits that you receive. Because if this is like you're hiding it or you don't have that person around you, I'm like, we might be hard pressed to get the results you're thinking you might get. Like, journeying in isolation is not, it's really an articulation of like American individualism, unfortunately. And we don't need a journey alone, but it's really hard to find people compassionate and literate enough to hold space. But I will say this: you don't need to be trained as a somatic therapist, trained as a psychedelic facilitator to hold a good space for your friend who's integrating their experiences. I just pray that you are a good listener, that you know how to ask questions, that you know how to make a cup of tea, and maybe know how to make some broth, because that is the point, truly, in rematriating entheogens in my perspective and offering a folk like literacy model, like teaching our children, teaching our community members, making education extremely accessible, entry level, harm reduction, like that, you're at the bottom floor and you're still learning all these skills, because we're watching psychedelic literacy and education move through not just medical models, but also higher education models. There are barriers in order for you to get access to this information. But what is that going to do to the population if we don't have the basic foundations and fundamentals of care? So if we can insource the mothers and the families, the dads and the uncles and the caregivers and teachers and people that interact with kids, then children could know, my son who's 4, like, knows to grab that cloth and go to the couch and say, hey, mommy, do you need some water? It looks like you need some tea. How was ceremony? Like, was it hard? And like, let's let the kids be knowing. Let's let the young people be knowing, because we'll have psychedelic literacy in just a couple generations. And this is a long game. This is a long game. This is generations of time and work. And same thing with womb care. When we bring our young womb holders, like 12, 13, we give them the anatomy talk. We give them, these are the cycles and the phases. We bathe their feet with some flowers and tell them, and if you're past that point, your menarche phase, let's hit them at the motherhood time. I know we're going to talk about motherhood, but like, that's a huge rite of passage as well. That's a huge initiation into a brand new body, to a brand new way of being, and a brand new way that your womb is going to function. And so if we can pour into mothers and say, it's never too late to have the anatomy talk. It's never too late to have the seasonal talk. It's never too late to talk about, how mushrooms can support you through this death space and into the transition of a new being. Menopause is not too late to talk about these things. Then like, we can really normalize this literacy. So when I ask people, who's in your corner, what is your environment at home like, that will be a great reflection of what things are going to feel like for you coming out of these experiences. Then we can tailor, then we can help people with what it's going to look like for them. But I think foundationally, the question of what is the makeup of your community right now, a better question than like, how often should I dose? You know what I mean? Like, what protocol should I be on? It's like, well, what's your house like? Are you stressed out at home? We're really interested in the outcomes, but truly, as you said, this is a very journey orientation. And same thing with the womb. Like, we want to have a flourishing womb with lots of pleasurable orgasmic experiences. I'm like, it's time to do some work then, because that is not a destination. And this is certainly a process. And even I've been in this space, I've been in the entheogenic space as long as I've been in the womb space, 10 years or more, honestly. And I still learn something very special with orgasmic experiences, with medicine in my system, with yoni steam, that unlocks me a little bit more every time and helps open me to myself a little bit more every time. And I'm very humbled by the synergy of entheogens and the womb. They can be very supportive and speak a very similar language.
Mm-hmm. So we are going to talk about motherhood, psychedelics, and parenting. But first, we're going to take a quick break. This episode is brought to you by Psyched Wellness. Psyched Wellness is on a mission to bring people the healing magic of Amanita muscaria mushrooms with their product, Calm. If you haven't heard, there has been a growing number of folks who are exploring the prospect of Amanita muscaria extracts in small doses for anxiety. And Amanita muscaria is not a scheduled substance in the United States, unlike psilocybin. So it's something that more and more people are exploring, getting interested in, and it's something that Psyched Wellness is devoted to. There's some things about Calm specifically that are unique and worth noting. So firstly, it's a natural made supplement made with handpicked Amanita muscaria mushrooms. I'm going to say that's important because there are a lot of supplements where you don't know where they're getting their ingredients. You don't know where they're getting their sources. And so it's really important when you're embarking on a journey of taking a new tincture, taking a new supplement, that you really know that you are purchasing a product that is made with care, made with intention. You know where they're getting their ingredients. Some of the benefits are that This Amanita muscaria extract may promote better sleep and may help you wake up feeling more rested without feeling groggy. It also may provide physical and mental stress support, which is something I know a lot of us are needing at this particular moment. So if you're curious about adding some calm to your life, you can check them out at psyched-wellness.com and use code DoubleBlind for 10% off at checkout. I apologize in advance to you, Mikaela, for always starting so fundamental, but I still feel like it's important because these are conversations that we're just not seeing had in Michael Pollan's book, in Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia on Vice, like on Tim Ferriss's podcast, like most of the places where most people are learning about psychedelics for the first time. So I'm just going to start with a very simple question that maybe actually doesn't have a simple answer, which is, why might a parent consider doing a psychedelic?
Because parents deserve to change their mind too. And that medicine can be just as supportive to the parenthood experience as it is supportive to anyone else in all of their other experiences. And I would even say that the pressure of what comes with parenting, the responsibility of caretaking the next generation, is even more motivation to be good, even more motivation to check in on how we respond to life, even more motivation to check in on how we organize our time, organize our homes. There's a lot at stake with these babies. We are at a very pivotal time on Earth that if we fuck this up, a lot of people can suffer. So most of the parents that are choosing this way of life do it with an earnestness to just try to be good, decent parents and raise happy, healthy children. So why might one? Because the anxiety that comes with raising a small child in this world to manage our own triggers and responses. We are a more trauma-informed world than I think we've ever been. At least in the modern history, Indigenous people knew about trauma and generational gifts. Now we're just coming back online to those truths. But we are recognizing for the first time, I think parents are recognizing for the first time, that the way that they were raised, they don't got to raise their kids like that. And how do we undo it? And how do we question? And how do we change? How do we end chancla culture, for example, to shout out my friend Leslie with Latinx parenting? Like, how do we not choose to hit our kids? Because I was spanked hella. And a lot of people listening might have been literally physically abused by their parents, might have been sexually abused by their family members. We're done, a lot of us, with that. And the promise that psychedelics might provide parents, you can restructure your response to life. You can change your personality. You can feel happy. You don't have to be so depressed and so addicted anymore. It's very enticing because we want to show up for our kids. And so I'm happy to see that that's mostly the desire for most parents. And I'm sure we all can get down with the fact that like parents also like to go to festivals and concerts and would like to also
they also like to have fun. They also like to have orgasms. Like, God forbid.
Come on. Like those things are also making us better parents. I hate to draw this hard divide around what's medicinal and what's recreational, because I've learned so much from having fun. And that's the point of being a kid. That's the point of getting down on the ground with your kid, is playing and having fun. If we can't play and have fun as parents, how are we supposed to play and have fun with our kids? And alcohol isn't the only option anymore, which, holy fuck, imagine that. The most boring of drugs, right? It's like lower on the totem pole in California than we've ever seen before. And we're expanding into different states as parents that are like providing more context for maybe even a smidgen of what our kids are experiencing in their regular state of consciousness and awareness. So yes, to be better parents and to have lots of fun. And I fully endorse both.
You've worked with so many mothers who are embarking on a journey with plant medicines. And every journey is different. Every person is different. So we can't generalize. But Will you just share with us a little bit about how you see the relationship between a mother and her child transform as the mother does her own work? Because again, a lot of times we're talking about the individual and we're saying like, I have depression, so I'm going to do psychedelics for my depression, but we're not having these larger conversations around we shift our internal space and then we see outward ripple effects in terms of all of our relations.
All of our relations. Yeah. Our relationship with our animals, our relationship with our partners, our relationship with our parents, our relationship with our children. And that's, I think, what this question is alluding to is what can be the impact of that and why and how does that actually function? And what is the nature of the relationship between mother and child? I mean, it is the closest bond that we have as a human species. The mother-child relationship. It is the only relationship quite like that. And children, and you know, they are undisputably an extension of our own nervous system in every way. And so
you see that with dogs too, actually.
Animals.
I don't have a child, but I have a dog. And I will tell you, when I'm meditating, she's zen as a little bee. When I'm stressed, she's barking at a storm.
We are relational. And our relational language is through our nervous system and co-regulating. And so it is our responsibility as mothers to cue to our children how their nervous systems need to respond. And that is how we communicate before talking, because children are mostly nonverbal for at least the first 6 months anyway. It is all nonverbal, psychic, and energetic and emotional communicating. And so when mom is caretaking her own nervous system, which I'm a huge proponent of just nervous system and trauma-informed ways of like microdosing and journeying, because these experiences can be low-key very destabilizing. And I don't think are always like, you're coming out feeling great. You know what I mean? It could be very like, fuck, I didn't realize I wasn't in love with your father anymore. And what does that mean? You know, how do I respond to you now? So I really like to lean on to the nervine plants, especially with postpartum mothers and nutritives and like making sure that bodies are nutrified and that nervous system is very tended to. And then we can add mushrooms to that. And then we can add 5-MeO and DMT. And then we can add ayahuasca to that. But if that soil is depleted as often it is in the postpartum period, we can send mommies for a loop for sure. So just wanted to name, just like shout out to the nervous system and shout out to the endocrine and the hormone system. And like, let's be sensitive to those things before just like trying to get results and blast off. But what might that change and what the nature of that relationship might be in a mother who's changing her mind actively? I mean, mothers can journey and be in relationship with their kids while they're microdosing. You can parent while dosing, which is so cool and unique. And what a lot of mothers have reported in the Mothers of the Mushroom research that I'm doing is like, what is it like dosing with their child around? Is it more triggering? Is there more spaciousness to be able to pull back and respond instead of react? So again, a beautiful deep dive is available for people that are interested in the reasons why mothers might dose. And what the impacts of those dosing experiences are like when they are actively parenting. In the Mothers of the Mushroom research, we have 400 entries now of mothers who ate mushrooms, pregnancy, breastfeeding, postpartum, and early childhood. So the results are varied. And I did some quick stats and some polls from the data already. And these words come up frequently. And all of it is available on that website. But the words that came up were present, mood regulation, calm, communicative, positive, sleep, anxiety relief. So like those words came up, some of them in the 400 surveys came up over 180 times. So it's just telling you that there are like shared experiences of mood regulation general presence slowing the fuck down and like responding to our kids. And children deserve that. Children deserve patience and kindness and gentleness and a nervous system that can respond. And I've certainly been in a space where I was like, I'm fucking up to here. Okay. Like with my toddler. And
you better not bark one more time, I tell Billy, or you're out of here.
I'm telling you, like, we deserve, and I will say this, mamas deserve a break. Okay. Mommies deserve extra hands on deck. I live with 2 aunties and papa. Okay. Like, and even that's hardly enough. So, and we have grandma here too. So, like, moms and families deserve to take time. And when I call it the mommy hours, like when I'm coaching folks and when I'm consulting with folks about their mushroom experiences and microdosing and bringing medicine in, I'm like, you know, what times of day do you actually have for yourself? And we call them the mommy hours. It's when everyone's asleep. Everyone's asleep, baby's asleep. This house is still for the first time in 12 hours. And mom has a moment to get on her little adult coloring book game, put on her playlist, take the living room, stretch, build a fire for herself. And I'm like, how about we bring mushrooms into that space? How about we bring medicine, MDMA to that space where you can be with yourself for a moment and breathe and feel your nervous system relax and not having to respond to, and putting out fires all day long. You deserve rest, mommy. Like, you deserve peace for a moment. And these medicines can provide that spaciousness so that when you go to bed that night, you can wake up right for your family. You can wake up rejuvenated for the role that you're given in this life. And for me, that's why the overnight ceremonies and the sits, like, I'll have to go hold a sit, you know? And I come home and I'm so hyped to see my family. My son runs to me and I'm like, I'm so renewed with my responsibilities. But if I'm tore up day in and day out with no break, he's not going to get the best version of me. So microdosing moms, that trope, it's cute, but I'm really here for also the journeying mother and the mother that can hopefully, prayfully take that 6 hours out. You know what I mean? And like, baby is cared for, but mom needs to go and journey and go into her unconscious and unpack some shit and cry like she's never cried before and sing like she's never sang before and be with the divine. Can mom get a moment to commune with divinity for a second so I can come back and like be rich for my family? I received a very important download piece of information for me and my family, and I ate 9 grams of mushrooms to get it. And I needed that space and I needed that time to learn. And I got the direct instruction to stop breastfeeding my son. That was such an important piece for me. We breastfed until he was almost 3. It was a long time of giving my body to this boy. And I wanted it back. I wanted to feel my body coming back to me, my periods to come back the way that they were. And I sat with 9 grams. It was so meaningful. And I talked to my son in that space. And I said, I think it's time. I think it's time to cut this. I think it's time for me to go back to me. I think it's time for you to go back to you. And I still love you. And I came home and my integration was enforcing that boundary with my child. And we moved out of our breastfeeding relationship because of that instruction. Moms deserve to consult with a very compassionate and loving intelligence. And we can make really serious changes about our worlds and the way that we design our families based in those pieces of information. So microdosing mothers, yes, please. And higher dosing mothers, yes, please also. And in the Mothers of the Mushroom survey, there is such a broad range of use among mothers. Like we have, 40% of mothers just only having microdosed here, and a lot of mothers at 6 grams or more. So I really also want to break the stigma of being a microdosing mom and breaking out of that and breaking into what relationships mothers have with mushrooms and all kinds of medicines, from being cultivators and ceremonialists and people with really deep relationships with medicine, and having those relationships inform the way that we parent and the way that our kids see us.
Right. Yeah. I hear you. And I think the first thought that comes to mind is that there is just so much fear. I think that's a big barrier to entry.
Mm.
People are afraid of psychedelics. People get really, really passionate. And there's a lot of fear too around parenting and how to raise your child and making a decision that maybe society doesn't agree with. And then how does your family react and how does school react? And like the intersection of these two topics in particular just always seems to stir up a lot of heat and passion when we talk about them at DoubleBlind. And I'm sure you see this on your own platforms as well. So, what would you say to a mother or a parent who's hearing this and saying, I want to take this step, but I'm afraid? I'm afraid of that larger dose journey. I'm afraid of making the space for myself. I'm afraid of how people are going to respond. I'm afraid of freaking child protective services coming and knocking on my door. I'm afraid.
Talk to someone who loves you and isn't going to judge you, first of all. Like, this story is not for everyone. This is personal, medical, spiritual information, and it is not for fucking everyone. So, like, some people are like on the top of a mountain talking about this shit because we're trying to be trailblazers out here and to like be a light post and like let people know that you are not alone. Some people are ready to take that up, and other people, it's none of their fucking business. You don't need to tell nobody if you don't want to. Like, you deserve to feel safe with your family. And if this is something that you keep to yourself for a while until you feel safe enough to come forward and maybe tell your child's teacher or to tell, your physician, like, what I'm so grateful to see is that there's much more literacy in the collective these days. Like, a lot of therapists, a lot of counselors, a lot of psychologists, they're getting hip to the shit. So I'm grateful that some people have kindness in their heart to meet mothers where they're at. And if mothers are ingesting earth medicine, like, there is a professional for you. So if you have no one to talk to, you can, like I said, you could talk to me. There are lots of people like me now. And we are just really here for compassionate care for moms. So, like, holler at me. I have a great network. Like, I would love to refer you to other folks and like let them know that you're coming. But I will also say, like, your story is not for every person, and it's okay to keep it secret and sacred until you feel comfortable. And we need to catch up collectively as a culture to the expectations we place on mothers and like how we can be more compassionate in how we respond to the needs of moms. And if you need a litmus, like if you need a little tester, do I talk to my midwife about this? Do I talk to my healthcare provider about this? Ask them about their views on cannabis. Like get like, you know what I mean? I always like consult with my moms like that. I'm like, if you're not sure how they're going to respond, see how they respond to things like cannabis and try that out. And maybe not like, because they'll still test you. I know women that like were and have been like tested kind of against their will and without their consent while they were pregnant. Their midwives were like, if we find cannabis in your system, we won't let you give birth here. So like, even cannabis is nasty, right? And like for some people, it's like the way people respond to cannabis is nasty. So see how they respond to that. And if they respond to that in kind, maybe you can start opening up to them. But if they don't respond to cannabis well, shit, how are they going to respond to psilocybin? So there are more entheogenic doulas out there. There are more healthcare providers that are getting literate to this. So I think the greatest threat to children of mothers who dose is CPS.
Yeah.
That's the greatest risk, is hating ass people. That's the greatest risk, not the psilocybin and not the cannabis, but it's the people that want to separate and take families apart. So just know that there's a nice little network growing. Shout out to Tracy on Moms on Mushrooms. If you need a little support group, she's got a great network. It's like over 700 strong. Like, get connected to some entheogen mama groups. Like, talk to me. Just tell the people who like care about you very much and aren't here to judge you and are just here to hold space and listen while the rest of the world gets their shit together.
which might be a while.
Might take a while. So truly, the word is rematriate entheogens. Okay, like we're rematriating entheogens, and like I said, it could take generations. We're here for the long game. Think of MLK, like he didn't even grow up to see the work that he did in his own lifetime. Malcolm X did not grow up to see the work, in his own lifetime. So it's like we are very in the first couple generations of coming back to a very old practice. And it takes a long time for that literacy to be generated. We are in a realm of duality. So as much as one group is rising and learning in this way, so is that warring faction to just balance it out. And that's just the scales and that's just the Omateo. And it's always going to be that way. I used to be on Team Wake 'em Up, like I'm going to shout from the rooftops and let everyone know my fucking opinion and try to change everybody's mind. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to save my energy for my people. So there's no need to fight resistance with your own life as evidence. Go get what you need and be surrounded by supportive and nurturing people and let those warriors on the edges fight for you. And I'm very willing to do that and be there for you, but you don't need to be on the front lines, honey. You go take care of your family and other people will fight with you and for you.
Thank you for fighting the good fight.
I'm not alone, so
it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
So typically, before we wrap a conversation, we invite our guests to do 1 to 2 minutes of breath work or meditation. I know that you had offered to share a song as a meditation for our community. So are you feeling good? You feeling like this is the moment?
Oh my gosh. I love to share a song. And there are quite a few songs, but I wanted to share a song that I share when I give these entheogen motherhood teachings. It's a song called Lakota Lullaby, if anyone knows it. It's a classic. It's been carried for a long time. And it is a song that I sang to my son before he was born. It put him to bed, still continues to put him to sleep. It's something that we can all carry. It's in the Lakota language. The rough translation is, and I say to you, and I say to you, and I say to you, sweet boy, please rest your head and go to sleep, for tomorrow will be a beautiful day. So take this to your babies, take this to your community, take this to your brothers. This is also for the men in our world. This is for the fathers. This is for the brothers and our sons. And it's a special gift. So I'm honored to share it. Chante washka hokshila agi estima ane teki waste we ahie. Chante washka hokshila agi estima ane teki waste we ahie. Ahie, ahie, we ahie. Ahie, ahie, we ahie. Ahie, ahie, we ahie. Ahie, ahie, oh, ahie. Let's go. welcome, Athi. Thank you for allowing me to share a very special song for these children, for ourselves, to bask in the lineage of mothers and the lineage of womb carriers, to know that we are not alone, that we're part of a very special web, a very special web that ties us all together, this matrix that holds life together, which is the womb and all that comes from it. So thank you.
The
fuck?
Just wanted to.
What was that?
I just felt like I needed to shake off some energy or something. Okay. Well,
I love you, Shelby.
I'm gonna go take a walk in the sun now. Bye, everyone. No, I'm just kidding. So final thoughts. Anything else you'd like to share? We'll put all the socials, all the web links, all the everything in the show notes so folks can find you. But if you want to share where folks can find you or anything else before we wrap up.
Yeah, thank you, Shelby. It's it's really nice connecting with you, and thank you for allowing me to share that song and my words. Truly, I'm a lay person. You know what I mean? Like I don't got digits or letters or anything behind my name outside of a Bachelor of Arts in English, right? With a minor in women's studies and gender and sexuality and ethnic studies. And just like, it's informed my work so much, but I've learned all of this through like tutelage and lineage teachings and just like listening and asking questions of people. And just know that like, this knowledge belongs to everyone, even the kids. You know what I mean? Like families deserve to have it. Teachers and friends, we deserve to know about the womb in the most basic sense and how to tend to it. And we deserve to know about psychedelics in the most basic sense and know how to tend to people within it. And just here to draw those lines of connection and relationship in this mush womb education, to uphold ma'at in every ways that we can, balance, order, ethics, reciprocity, righteousness, right? As we're dealing with harm reduction and supporting survivors of predatory practitioners, like it's a lot of work.
Whole other conversation.
A lot of work to be done here. Okay. And happy to do it. And just keep pouring into yourself, keep pouring into the earth. She's listening. She's responding. Nature's responding. The world needs us right now. Good people, kind people, communicative, collaborative people. So I just pray that these medicines can find you in a good way, and that we can just always remember that we're here to be good to each other. So thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. If you have thoughts about what we talked about, or you have suggestions about who should come on, there are so many ways to hit us up. You can email us at magichour@doubleblindmag.com or visit doubleblindmag.com/magichour. Find us on all social platforms at DoubleBlindMag. I also want to give a shout out to the amazing folks at Human Content who are producing this podcast and helping make it possible. They do a lot of other great podcasts, so you can check them out on Instagram and TikTok at Human Content Pods. Thanks to all of the great listeners for leaving wonderful feedback and awesome reviews. If you subscribe and comment on your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube, we might give you a shout out. There are full episodes every week of the Double Blind Magic Hour on YouTube at DoubleBlind. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Shelby Hartman. Special thanks again to our guest, Mikaela de la Myco. Our executive producers are Aaron Corney, Rob Goldman, Shanti Brooke, and Alex Field from the Double Blind team, who also edits the show. Our engineer is Jason Portizo. Our music is by Oma. To learn about our Double Blind Magic Hour program disclaimer and ethics policy and submission verification and licensing terms, you can go to doubleblindmag.com/magic-hour. The Double Blind Magic Hour is a Human Content and Double Blind production. Now let's take you out on Agua Caldera by Carioca Chandra Edgar. Thanks for watching. And if you're thinking, gosh, I really need more Double Blind Magic Hour in my life, well, you can start listening now by clicking on that playlist button right over there. New episodes are out every Monday, so please subscribe and join us each week on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.